Don't you think, like, if I could go back and give, like, first-year teacher Dave that advice, it's like, stop worrying so much about that. You're worrying about the wrong things. Think more about this.
Welcome to Hallway Conversations. We're a trio of educators who have plenty of questions about teaching and learning and school culture, and we believe in the value of reflection and collaboration as we seek to keep growing as teachers. This podcast is our place for thinking out loud together about issues in education and why they might matter to Christian educators. Welcome to the conversation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 103rd episode of the Hallway Conversations podcast. My name is Matt Beamers.
I'm Abby DeGroat.
And I'm Dave Mulder.
Friends, we are thankful to our friends over at the Center for the Advancement of Christian Education for their generous sponsorship of our podcast. And we encourage you to visit their website at www.case.org. That's www.cace.org. We're always looking for topics of conversation and feedback, so please email us at hallwayconvospod@gmail.com. That's hallwayconvospod@gmail.com. Your feedback and your ideas are important to us. Dave and Abby, welcome back to the hallway. It feels like a long time since we've met. It actually has been a long time since we've met. Since our last meeting, the calendar has turned over to 2024. The trees and the decorations are probably put away. Although I did see a house with a Christmas tree still standing the other morning.
We still have our lights on outside.
Oh, yeah, all right. And the local students, at least here in Iowa, have had a few days of school and a few snow days off, not to mention minus 40 wind chill. And the semester is well underway on campus here.
Although 26 degrees feels balmy today.
It does,
that's
actually.
right.
I went for a walk outside.
Yeah, it's nice.
Pretty nice.
50 degrees warmer than it was two weeks ago. Anyways, I thought maybe we can begin with just a little check-in before we start. So we're almost a month into the new year, and I'm wondering if you can share something that has brought you or helped you choose joy in this first month of the year.
I got a good one. Okay, so I recently had a Barnes & Noble trip with my daughters. My middle daughter, Reese, wanted to read. She was reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in school and knew there was more books. So we bought, all of the paperbacks.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have a full collection of Narnia, but it's all one bound book, and she wanted, the little one. So we bought the whole paperback set. Well, my son, Jace, who's 8, second grade, kind of got wind that, there was a book before The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which he's seen the movie of. So he is getting all curious about this. So Jace and I have spent the month of January several evenings reading through the first book in the series, which is The Magician's Nephew.
Oh, I love that book.
And the kid is delighted.
Yeah.
When he figures out things, because he knows The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Right.
So then he'll all of a sudden realize, when he figured out that Jadis was the White Witch, his eyes got super big, and he got so excited. And then just last night we read the part where she throws the lamppost and it starts to grow. That's why it's in it.
That's so
then
great.
then the lion shows up and he's like, what?
Yeah.
He's like, Aslan's in this book too? And so every time we finish a chapter, he's like, it's a cliffhanger. This is great. It's just been delightful to read with him. So I think we're going to keep going
that's great.
Through the series. But it's just been great to read it to a kid his age and just watch him discover and realize, the genius that is.
Yeah, and the benefit in some ways of knowing the second book before you read the first book. I've never thought of that.
He's got some framework to put down, and then he's just discovering it as he goes. It's pretty fun.
That's one of those book series that I wish I could in some ways erase my memory and read for the first time again. I had that with Harry Potter too, where it was just it's the last time I can remember driving fast to a bookstore to buy a new book when it came out, and just to have that again. How about you, Dave?
That's so cool. I got a Christmas gift for my wife this year. I love coffee. You guys, it's no secret, right? I'm totally addicted to caffeine, all that. And she was like, it's time for you to up your coffee game. And so I was like, great, let's do that. So she got me a nice electric kettle and a pour-over setup.
We've been talking about this, so I need more information.
We'll talk offline about that. But it's such a, I've always just had a crappy drip coffee maker
Yeah,
at
that's
home.
what we have too, and we
it's
are
fine,
unsatisfied.
but- right.
Yeah.
And now like this is such a different scenario. So like I dial it in, so my water is 196 degrees because it's 196 degrees. And then there's this whole like technique for pouring. So I get up at
Okay.
5:30 every morning, have my devotions, but now it's like I had to dedicate. It's like it takes me about 10 minutes to actually make a cup of coffee this way,
Okay.
and it is absolutely worth it. It is the best cup
Okay.
of coffee I've ever made for myself, and I do it every morning.
I
and
like
so
it.
I love the ritual of it. I love that there's just a little bit of like time for me to kind of start waking up and just the aroma, like the whole thing. It's a whole sensory experience too. So that's been a really good change for me.
A different kind of formational
It is,
practice.
really.
I just think something even about the slowness of it.
It forces me to slow down, and it's not like I can do something else while I'm doing it because I have to pay attention while I'm pouring and everything, right? So it does kind of just start me off in a different way.
Good coffee is so good.
Yeah.
It's like a
It's
good cup
important.
of coffee.
Yeah.
I would say for me, the joy of watching the new Percy Jackson series with our daughter Madeline. So we
Is it Netflix? Did it come out?
on the Disney Channel,
Okay.
and a new
Okay.
episode comes out every Tuesday, and I want to watch it right away.
Oh yeah.
But she has a dear friend they've committed to watching it together, so I can't watch it with her until after she watches it with her friend.
Nice.
And so you wait all week to watch it, and so we watched this week's episode last night. And it's just a great story, but it's also like my daughter's 18, and it's just still wonderful to have these moments
Yeah.
of shared experiences. So just really thankful for
That's
that.
great.
Hey, thanks for that, folks.
Yeah.
Dave and Abby, over the past week, I've spent quite a bit of time talking to local school leaders. And one of the questions that has come up has been about what has changed for them in leadership since they began their leadership journey. Whether that's in how they lead, what parents or teachers or students need now compared to, say, 5 or 10 years, overall how the job has changed. Some of them have also talked about how some of the things in their role have not changed, whether that's be their core values that they still cling to, the fact that everyone they run into still needs to feel valued and have a sense of belonging. So lots of things have changed, and other things have been, thankfully, have stayed the same. This has made me think about my own teaching career in the classroom, as a leader now in higher ed, and about reflecting on about some of the things that have changed for me, and some of those changes I'm thankful for, and some of the things that have changed that maybe I'm not as thankful for. Like, dare I say, there might be things in the quote unquote good old days that I kind of miss. So here's my question for you. What are some of the positive changes you've experienced as a teacher, whether they be systemic or in your practice, pedagogy, your discipline, assessment, some other aspect of teaching? So maybe in the larger education field or specific to your own teaching. And are there some things from those good old days when you started teaching that you miss, even if it's just a little bit? So either of you, and you can go any direction you want with this, but Dave, anything coming to mind?
I feel like a bona fide old guy. Like back in my day.
Let's
good old
not
days.
try to sound like curmudgeon-y
Right,
old
right.
teachers.
No, this is very silly. But we had my first teaching job. I made my own bulletin boards a lot and things like that. We had the Ellison letter punch machine, so I would just like punch out the letters for what I needed it to say and all that. But I always laminated the paper before I'd punch them out. And I'm just thinking right now about like the smell of the laminator, which I loved.
I like that
Which
smell.
I know, right?
I like
And
it
it's
too.
like, and I haven't laminated something myself. I don't know when the last time was. It's probably been 20 years or more since it, right? So that's something. Just as you say that, it's just something silly, but it has me thinking about like my classroom technology in my first teaching job in the late 90s. I did not have a computer in my classroom.
Yeah. I didn't either. When I started,
You're a lot
like
younger
I
than I am, Abby.
remember when we got laptops. Like I had maybe a big one,
Oh, sure.
but I remember when we got laptops, and I remember when we started to have the ability to project from our computer because I was using overhead still.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was going to say. I was a middle school math teacher, and I had, in my classroom, I had a chalkboard with chalk, not a whiteboard, and I had the wet erase overhead projector on the transparencies where I'm dragging my hand so it stains my heel of my hand blue as I go, right?
So, if we want to show a document, it was always a...
Make it a transparency.
Yes, make it a transparency.
Yeah. And it's just so interesting to think about that. That's something, I mean, that sounds very hoity-toity, right? To say like, oh, I don't miss chalk at all, but I don't like getting chalk all over my pants and everything. I don't miss that in the slightest. The wet erase, lick my thumb to wipe off and erase my errors.
I haven't thought about that in years.
Right? I don't miss that stuff at all.
No.
That's just fine. That said, I also wonder sometimes. I mean, I'm a tech guy and all that, right? But I wonder sometimes, could I teach without a computer? Again, right? So much of my teaching practice revolves around my laptop at this point, just in terms of document management or the things that I want to present for visual aids in front of my class. And I'd like to think I could still teach without a laptop, but boy, that would take such a mind shift for me at this point. It's just interesting.
It would be really interesting if someone for one day put a overhead projector in your classroom and just said, try it for one go. Just to see. I think
kind of like to try it.
I know. And part of me thinks I would just sit there and stare at it and say, what do you want me to do with this? Because I taught off an overhead all the time, and there's parts of it I kind of liked it. Like, you write funny notes, or you draw funny pictures as you're going, or you kind of edit on that.
I still do essentially the same thing with the doc cam sometimes.
Oh, sure.
With my own writing or with a document that I'm annotating.
You can write on.
That's a good point, right? So that's a different technology for it, but the principle, the pedagogy is still similar.
How about you, Abby? Something you either you don't miss or you do miss?
You know, I think sometimes I subbed in a high school classroom, and I have a lot of friends who still teach at the high school level, and I do think I kind of missed when I left K-12. Kids had cell phones, but it was not ubiquitous to the extent that it is now. I sometimes think, I think that shift has been harder for how do we, because I think it's not only distracted in class, I think it's also a social shift, right? Where students are on their phones, they're having trouble connecting to each other, they're having trouble connecting to adults in ways that I don't think was an issue when I taught, at least not for the first little bit. And then as students, I think I kind of got in on the beginning of it, but missed the big deal that it's become now. Social media, Snapchat did not exist when I taught. Right? So, so how...
So you taught on overhead, but no Snapchat.
No Snapchat.
You're that generation, right?
The in-between
generation. We are the in-between generation. My generation is the generation that is sandwiched between Gen X and millennials, and we did not grow up with technology. My first cell phone I got it when I was a freshman in college. So... and it was the Nokia, right? There was no texting. You had to hit the letter 4 times to get the number 4 times. It cost money. Every text cost money. So we never texted each other because you could call for free after 8 o'clock.
Yes, that's right.
Did you own a flip phone ever?
No, my first phone was a block phone. One of those block Nokias. Yeah, it was powder blue. It was great. Wow. But so I sometimes think about how my pedagogy would have had to have shifted if I was still there, and how, especially high school, even junior high teachers are handling that shift. It's something I wonder about a little bit.
Well, I know of schools that are going to that idea of banning cell phones during the school day completely, and not even just keep them in your locker, don't have them during the school day kind of a
at
thing,
all,
right? At all.
Not even not during class, but don't have them.
Not during breaks, not in the hallway, anything, right? And I think what a paradigm shift that's got to be for families that are now very used to being able to get a hold of their kids at any time.
It makes me wonder who it's going to be harder on, parents or students. It depends, right? As you say, Dave.
That's right.
Related to that, though, I think one of the things I saw also shift around that was interactions in the staff room. I can remember again, I don't even bemoan it, or it doesn't make me grumpy. Just the liveliness of a good staff room at lunch or break or before or after school. Versus sometimes coming in there and, teachers needing a break and just wanting to be on their phone. And I get all that. So that actually makes sense to me. But I also, like I said, there was something so energizing about a good staff room, a vibrant staff room discussion. So I also wonder as we talk about students, I sometimes think about, how technology has impacted staff cultures and teacher cultures at school. So
It's a thing.
it is a thing,
Right.
for sure.
One other that's come to mind as we're talking about this, and I started alluding to like parents' expectations, but I wonder. Again, I feel like an old guy saying this, right? But like back in my day, but no, really, the school community, my first teaching job, the school community I was at in Escondido, Calvin Christian School, phenomenal place, and very supportive parents. And I think, yes, it was that community, but also it was a different time than today. And I'm not trying to set this up like parents and teachers are, at odds with each other, but I think there is more possibility for things to go in that kind of a direction, or to feel that way. Like we're not all pulling on the same rope here. We're not on the same on the same page. And I wonder about that. Like I think that's something. I guess I'm doing self-analysis as I say this, right? Like, am I in that situation? Right? My kids are out of high school now, but like, did I perceive it that way? Like, am I pulling on the same rope as as my kids' teachers? And I'm not sure I always was. And I'm pointing the finger at myself as I say that. So I wonder how that is. I'm sure I've friends who are teaching in K-12 or school leaders in K-12 who will name that, right? Like the kind of support that they maybe used to experience from parents. It looks different today, at least. Yeah.
I'd be really curious to see some of the data related to how things have changed with parents and people either deciding not to become teachers or leaving the teaching profession. Like how significant parent interactions is on that number. Like I hear it. I do hear it more, right? Like it's different with kids, but it's still, there's still kids and students but it's some of the outside noise. And I think we need to ask ourselves this in Christian schools, in any school, is to say, how are we educating our parents around what does it mean to partner with us? Because I think on the one hand, we want, in no matter where we teach, we want strong partnerships with parents and healthy partnerships with parents, but then having honest conversations about what healthy partnerships are, about what is acceptable in our community and what's not acceptable in your community. And just because you're a tuition paying parent at a private school doesn't make everything okay, does not give you the right to say or do certain things. And I feel like maybe that was assumed at one time. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe the good old days weren't as good as I think. No, like I want to be open to that for sure. Yeah. But I do think, I do worry. Like I said, if we want good teachers, how do we as parents? And I'm looking at myself that way. Like, how do I support teachers in that? And does it mean every time something goes wrong or I perceive an injustice that I gotta send an email, or do I gotta get in someone's face about it and tell them where they went wrong? So I don't know.
I also think there's shadow sides to everything, right? I also think there's been good accountability that has grown for teachers. As well, right? Like my dad got paddled at school, right? Totally. Like, and so you have to think about it.
There's a shift
from the other perspective too. Like I do think there's more accountability for teachers not doing harm to students at school too than there has been,
thankfully,
in the past. Thankfully, right? So that I think every shift has a bit of good and a bit of bad in it.
Yeah. It makes me wonder. Like, and again, I'm thinking about myself as a parent, or just. Is like what is high support, high accountability look like?
Exactly.
Even for me as a parent in every situation, right? Like what does healthy and high accountability look like in terms of my child's education? But also, what does high and healthy support look like for?
Both have to be true.
Yeah, not just for my child.
Yeah.
But
for the community, for the teacher, for all of that.
Yeah. So I
agree.
So I just wonder about. So it just makes me. It makes me nervous sometimes for young teachers about. I talked to one young teacher recently who got literally received like dozens of emails from a parent who cared deeply for their child. Like, so,
Yeah.
like, I don't question any of that. Like, I want to believe that those things come out of a good place. But that's also hard because it feels like it's never good. It's never good enough.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that can just wear you down.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
yeah, so like I wonder about it. Maybe you, like in terms of even how we talk about differentiated instruction, and that's really important. And what's possible and what's sustainable when you have 28, like some of our teachers have large classes, and to meet the needs of all those students
Oh, man.
without any extra support or resources. And so,
Well, and the importance, I think, of distinguishing for parents to help them understand the difference between differentiated instruction and individualized instruction, right? Like,
yeah,
I'm not going to write
totally.
28 lesson plans.
Yeah.
I can have 2 plans for the day,
Yeah.
right? But no, I can't actually plan for every kid's individualized learning. We don't have the resources to do that. And that's an unrealistic expectation, I think, if that's what the expectation parents are coming with, right? We need to be able to have that conversation as a school community.
yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Abby? Any thinking? How about from the good old? Think about the good old days, or even even different changes in your pedagogy now. That things you're aware of now that 15 years ago you weren't as aware.
Yeah, I think I'm getting ready. I'm prepping a class for tomorrow in my planning and instruction and assessment course on backwards design.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and I think when I was a new teacher, I totally committed what Grant, Wiggins, and Mateague call the twin sins of, right? Like covering content and starting with activities instead of starting with what are the enduring understandings that kids need to take away, right? Like I had a textbook and these were the things
We're marching
that I
through it,
was
whether or
going to
not they're learning.
And I think I have completely shifted to, okay, what are my course outcomes?
Yeah.
And then working backwards from there, which is, I think, a much better way to go about things. And I think I have a much deeper understanding of that. And even caring about learning more than caring about putting grades in, and leading students to care more about the learning than caring about their scores, right? I think there's a whole host of things that I've done to move in that direction that I think I'm just much better at.
Don't you think, like, if I could go back and give, like, first-year teacher Dave that advice, it's like, stop worrying so much about that. You're worrying about the wrong things. Think more about this. And I think, thankfully, we get to keep growing, and we don't get judged on who we were at 22 when we started teaching.
Right.
Well, here's something I miss, but I know is not good practice. I miss the feeling of filling up my grade book with grades, and then when report cards come, adding them all up and dividing. Like,
So satisfied.
Totally. I miss, that's all I'm saying. I miss the satisfaction of just doing that. I don't want to go back to it.
Right.
I don't.
I do.
Come on, tell me.
A paper grade book,
Yeah.
pros and cons, but I do kind of miss keeping a paper grade book, honestly. And the tangibility of that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Not a bit. Not one bit.
Maybe like a lesson planner with the squares.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of liked that.
Were you like fill the square?
No,
person?
I was
No.
like, but broad strokes. And then,
All right.
yeah.
Friends, we know your time is valuable, and we want to thank you for joining us today for another hallway conversation. Whether it's this day, this week, or this month, we hope the Lord gives you what you stand in need of, and we'd like to send you from here with a blessing. To our listeners, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace and give you peace and give you peace. Amen. Thanks for listening, everybody. We hope you have a good week.
This podcast was literally dreamed up during one of our actual hallway conversations. Our music is by Ethan Mulder. Hallway Conversations is created and produced by Matt Beamers, Abby DeGroat, and Dave Mulder. Hey, we have a favor to ask of you. Would you be willing to rate this podcast or write a review in your podcast app? Or if you found this conversation interesting or helpful, would you consider sharing it on your social media? Those things really do help podcasters out, and we would be so, so grateful. Thanks for listening, friends.
Feel like an old guy.
Oh, man.
I have so many questions.